Hello guys, this is Jack, and today we're going to be talking about my final Oscar predictions for this season. It is time for the Oscar predictions. It is coming on Thursday, the nominations, so might as well predict my final predictions before, things get hectic. I do want to say that this season has been very challenging for me because there has been a lot of left field moments in terms of other guilds and nominations such as the PGA, DGA, the BAFTAs, which I didn't really react to on my channel, but I want to factor everything in with all that in mind. And yeah, let's just get into it. I'm going to do the whole thing except the shorts because I'm in the middle of doing a death race with all the shorts that are contending. So I will talk about the shorts a little bit later, maybe in a couple weeks. But for now, let's just focus on the other categories. So I'm going to start with the international feature because I think this is just completely locked up in terms of nominations. So starting at number 1, I have Emilia Perez. Number 2, I have I'm Still Here. Number 3, Seed of a Sacred Fig. Number 4, Kneecap. And then number 5, I'm going for Vermiglio. Instead of The Girl with the Needle, I think Vermiglio has a better chance getting nominated here because it got nominated for the Golden Globe. I don't need to say anything else about other, contending international features, especially Flow, because I think Flow has a better chance at animated feature than just, the typical international film category. Kneecap's doing pretty damn well. I expected it to kind of either falter past the Golden Globes, mostly in the BAFTA nomination ring, but it feels like it's actually going to get in here, which I'm really happy because I think Kneecap is just a really great movie, and I think people should check it out. I think it's on Hulu, I believe, but yeah, this top 5 is just locked up. Emilia Perez is probably going to win it. Although I do think I'm Still Here is going to challenge it, but we'll talk about that once the nominations come out. But yeah, that's my international film predictions. So next up, I have Best Documentary Feature, starting with No Other Land as my number 1 pick. Number 2, I have Daughters. Number 3, I have Sugarcane. Number 4, I have Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat. I did check that movie out a long time ago. It was actually really good. And then number 5, I gotta look at the scorecard according to Awards Watch because I want to really go kind of in depth of which picks I think should deserve the documentary feature. No Other Land has a lot of precursors, a lot of them, 16 in fact, according to the scorecard. Sugarcane has 7, and then Dahomey has 2, and Will and Harper has 7, and then Daughters has 2 precursors. The Remarkable Life of Mbellen only has 1. Porcelain War only has 1, and that's Sundance, the Sundance win. And yeah, those are just basically it. I actually do think Dahomey might actually get here because it's just a really short documentary. It's only 60 minutes. But I do think also Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat, pronunciation wrong, terrible. It can also be a part here. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, is crossed out because they don't really a lot of celebrity documentaries as of late. I don't know if they're going to break the stat here, but I do think Soundtrack to a Coup, it's not really about jazz musicians. It's more about the overall historical context of the story, and jazz musicians are in the middle of it, especially towards the halfway point of the documentary. So that's why I have it more contending instead of Will and Harper, or even Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. So that's why I think my top 5 is going to go with No Other Land, Daughters, Sugarcane, Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat, and Dahomey. Black Box Diaries, I saw it a couple weeks ago. It was really good, but I think the problem is that MTV Films is kind of not doing the best campaign with that film. And going back to Will and Harper, I do think that documentary suffers with the celebrity documentary curse. And then the BB Files it could actually get nominated here, but I haven't seen too much of the BB Files getting in. Let me just double check, my little fact checking, because I want to make sure I'm doing everything right before, I lock these down. So the BB Files basically is only shortlisted for the Oscars. It hasn't won anything else. I don't see, any accolades here. So I'm not going to predict the BB files for that fifth slot. This is just basically my top 5, and I'm just going to like raw dog it and see how it plays out, because usually the international feature and the documentary feature section is usually the ones that are all over the place and unpredictable, and you don't know if any of these 5 that I predict are actually going to like get in. They usually go the other way around, or they sometimes, stick to the plan. But I think the documentary feature category is going to be like very unpredictable. There's a lot of other categories that are going to be like really unpredictable, but we'll go deeper into that. Yeah, let's get into the rest of the nomination categories. So next up, I'm going with the best animated feature list, starting with Flow as my number 1 pick, number 2, The Wild Robot, number 3, Inside Out, to number 4, Memoir of a Snail, and then number 5, Wallace and Gromit. Pretty straightforward. I think Flow has a better chance here because it won the Golden Globe. It has the better campaign that's going on right now, especially if you follow the director on Twitter. He's just been posting a lot of like behind the scenes looks and like footage of like how the film was made, and it's really cute, and I actually really enjoyed Flow, and I think it deserves here. And then Wild Robot number 2, this is the runner-up. Right now, I do think The Wild Robot could have a chance to win everywhere else, including like Critics' Choice and BAFTAs, but I still think Flow has a better chance right now since everybody's talking about it after the Golden Globe win. And then Inside Out 2 at number 3, Memoir of a Snail at number 4. Although I do think Memoir of a Snail is a little bit, I think, at risk a little bit. I don't know if it'll stay in the race, but I do think Memoirs of a Snail still has a chance to stay here. And the Wallace and Gromit at number 5 makes sense here because the movie just premiered on Netflix and is getting really good reviews. And it's Aardman, and Aardman, there's sometimes hit and miss, but like the big boys like Wallace and Gromit and the Shaun the Sheep movie, you gotta like put it into your top 5. It just makes sense. But yeah, that's like my animated feature predictions. So next up is visual effects. So this one's really interesting because I do think Doom Part 2 can still take the visual effects win here, even though the film itself is kind of starting to fall apart in its campaign. But I also do think other films in this category could also take it. I do think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes can also take it as my sort of runner-up since it got nominated for the VES awards, the Visual Effects Awards, which is kind of like the big precursor for visual effects. But I also do think Better Man has a good chance because of its campaign right now. It's kind of like out in terms of like everything else, not like Best Picture. Well, yeah, Best Picture. But even though the movie is not doing well at the box office, the studio is actually doing a pretty good job showcasing the visual effects of Better Man and the emphasis of Robin Williams becoming a CGI monkey with mocap and the choreography and everything. So you got to put it there. But I also do think that putting 2 monkey movies in this nomination ring might actually hurt it. It'll probably might be, a cancel out situation, but I don't really see that. I also think Wicked is going to be nominated here because it was not nominated at the VES. Let me just double check real quick before, I make that assumption. And yeah, it wasn't nominated for the VES. It got replaced with other films like Mufasa, The Lion King, Twisters, Blitz, Civil War, Horizon, American Saga Part 1, Nosferatu, and The Young Woman and The Sea. Those were the VES nominations, but I still think Wicked could actually get here because it's going to be a Wicked Palooza at the Oscars with a lot of the nominations, so it makes sense to have it here. So my number 5 pick, I personally think that there's other films that could actually sweep in here. I don't see Gladiator 2 getting nominated here, even though the film itself has kind of fallen apart in terms of top of the line category. But I'm gonna go with Twisters for number 5. I know it's gonna be strange, but it got nominated here at the VES Awards, and I think it would correlate to the nominations here at the Oscars. Yeah, I don't know, I'm flip-flopping between Twisters and Alien Romulus, but I think Twisters has a better chance here. So that's my top 5 for visual effects. This is just another category where I'm just you know what? Let me just raw dog it and see how it plays out. but I'm not confident in the last slot, which is Twisters, but you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it. So next up is Best Sound, and this one's going to be another given. Doom Part 2 at number 1, Wicked at number 2. I think A Complete Unknown is number 3. Number 4, Emilia Perez. Yeah, I don't need to say anything about that. And I do think Gladiator 2 could also get in here because it's pretty simple because of the crowd sound in that movie and just like the, swords and other stuff happening in between. I don't have anything too much to say about like this nomination predictions for Best Sound. I think all of these make sense. I can't fight for Alien Romulus, even though I do think it could sneak in here. Blitz is done. The Wild Robot is nowhere to be seen, and including also Joker to Deadpool and Wolverine. So, yeah, it's pretty simple. That's my Best Sound predictions. So, next up, I have Best Song. So, this one's actually going to be really cool because a lot of these songs that are going to be nominated this year are going to be pretty cool, except maybe one song here that I wince and kind of go, come on, man. So I'm going for El Mal from Emilia Perez as the number 1 pick, even though I do think Mi Camino is the better Emilia Perez song. I do think El Mal has, the better punch in terms of how it's placed in the film. But I have Mi Camino at the runner-up section at number 2. And then number 3, I have Kiss the Sky from Wild Robot. Number 4, I have Sing Like a Bird. And then, actually, scratch that. Because, I think the Sing Sing train is going to, fall apart. I will explain later. So let's scratch the Sing Sing song and go for the Diane Warren song from the 666, whatever the hell it is. I haven't heard the song, but it's Diane Warren, and they love to humiliate her every time around when she gets nominated and loses every day. Every moment of her life has been leading up to just getting nominated every year and then just losing the award. But number 5, I have Compress Repress by Challengers. It won. It didn't actually. Did it win the Golden Globe? The Golden Globes were quite a while ago, but let me double check before, again, I make assumptions. So, Golden Globe, did it win? No, it just won the original score. I thought so, but I'm still going for a Compress Repress because of that Golden Globe nomination. But, yeah. So, that's my top 5. El Mal, Mi Camino, Kiss the Sky, The Journey from the 688, and then Compress Repress from Challengers. So, next up is Best Score. Starting with The Brutalist taking the top spot at my number 1 pick. And then number 2, I have Challengers. Number 3, I have Conclave. Number 4 and 5, these are going to be really interesting because I do think there's a lot of other great picks here that I think could actually take it. I do think Emilia Perez for Best Score. It's kind of weird because a lot of the music is incorporated with the musical songs in here. But I also do think that there is some moments in Emilia Perez where you can tell that the score is being incorporated a lot with just the overall dialogue in the film. I did listen to the second half of the soundtrack, which is basically the score of Emilia Perez, and it's pretty good. There's a moment in the film where the 3 women are arguing on the phone, and the musical cues for that particular scene is very noticeable and substantial. But I think B here at number 4. And then number 5, I have The Wild Robot. And you're probably yelling at me for either choosing this and also not choosing Wicked. But I believe Wicked doesn't have anything to differentiate from the musical numbers to the actual, score, because it's totally completely combined compared to Emilia Perez, where there is, musical numbers, but there's also straight score, and Wicked just combines everything together seamlessly. So that's why I have Wild Robot at number 5. Although I do think there's other options here, like The Room Next Door and maybe Nosferatu, if they have a Nosferatu day. But I think this top 5 is pretty solid for me. So I'm just going to go with that, and I'm going to see how it plays out. But yeah, that's my top 5 for Best Score predictions. And also, by the way, with going back to Emilia Perez versus the Wicked score, the Emilia Perez score got nominated for Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, BAFTAs, so it has a higher chance to get nominated here, opposed to Wicked, which, again, my argument is that the Emilia Perez songs and score is separated perfectly compared to Wicked, which is completely intertwined with each other. So, yeah, that's the reason why I have Emilia Perez at number 4 for score. So next up I have best production design, and I have Wicked winning here because of the built set designs and the aggressive campaign that Universal is doing with Wicked in terms of the technical categories. I think the production design in Wicked is just fantastic. You could say the same with The Brutalist with its under $10 million budget and how big they got with the production design in that movie. And then Dune Part 2 at number 3. Conclave at number 4 because of the sole purpose of the Vatican being built up from scratch. And number 5, Nosferatu, because it's nominated at the Critics' Choice for Best Production Design and BAFTAs for Best Production Design, so it makes sense to have it here. Nosferatu is surging pretty well with like the technical categories. I think it would make sense for Nosferatu to be here. I can't say too much about Emilia Perez because it was built, the sets were built in France, and there's a whole, controversy that's going on with, it not being authentic. I don't want to explain it here, but I've talked about the Emilia Perez Oscar villain potential type of deal thing on my channel. You can, check out that video if you want. But yeah, I don't see Emilia Perez here. I don't even see Gladiator 2 because it's just been dropping off. But yeah, I mean, these are my top 5 for best production design. I don't have too much debates about other, potential films here. The Substance, it's kind of sad because I do think The Substance deserves to be nominated here because I think the idea of building LA from the ground up with just using the green screen projections and the actual apartment being built up, it's a really interesting production design choice. But I do think this top 5 is better and makes more sense compared to some other films that are here. But yeah, that's my top 5 for best production design. So next up I have best makeup and hairstyling. Quick. The Substance has been doing pretty well with getting the precursors for a lot of the makeup and hairstyling nominations. So I have that at number 1. Number 2, I have Wicked. Makes sense because Alphaba is green, and that's a big emphasis on the makeup. Number 3, Nosferatu. The Nosferatu makeup, it goes hard. I don't have anything too much to say about that. And then number 4, Emilia Perez, is solely because of the detransitioning makeup in that film. Yeah, there's videos out there explaining how that process was made. And number 5, I have A Different Man because of the prosthetics that Sebastian Stan has to use throughout the film. But those are my top 5. I don't think Dune Part 2 is going to hop into here again. They're not going to, I think, nominate for it again for best makeup and hairstyling. I think it did get nominated for the last part. Not completely sure. And the Beetlejuice is kind of a Hope Dick moment, even though it hasn't shown up anywhere else. And then The Apprentice, I wish, but I think it's minimal makeup and hairstyling for Sebastian Stan, only for a little, of the fat with Donald Trump, but I don't see it anywhere else. That's my top 5 for best makeup and hairstyling, and let's continue on. So next up, I have best film editing, starting with number 1, Challengers. This is only the biggest spot that I can think of that Challengers could win here. Because if you did watch the film, the editing it has an emphasis on cutting back and forth between multiple storylines and timelines, and if you've seen the movie, you know how it works out. And then number 2, I have Conclave, number 3, Honor, number 4, Emilia Perez, number 5, Dune Part 2. Don't see Wicked getting nominated here, although I do think it could sneak in here if it's having a good nomination morning. Substance also as well, if it's having a really good morning, I think the Substance can kind of sneak in here, but I don't know if it can cap out, Dune Part 2 or even Honora, because I think the editing in Honora is just fantastic, and Sean Baker does it himself as usual. And I wouldn't say too much about, A Complete Unknown or September 5, although I do think September 5 could, sneak into other categories. I will explain that a little bit later. But, this is my top 5 for best film editing. I don't have anything too much to say about it. I do think that Challengers could actually take the award since it has won a lot of precursors. 11, in fact. So you got to take that into account. But I also do think that Conclave has a good chance of winning here. And I also do think that Doom Part 2 has a good chance here. But yeah, it's my best film editing predictions. Let's continue on. So let's do best costume design real quick. Wicked, Doom Part 2, Nosferatu, Conclave, Maria. Wicked has really damn good costumes. Doom Part 2, I don't know. It's still kind of like flip-flopping. Let me just double check the scorecard right here. So I actually would say Wicked. Then I would say Nosferatu, Conclave. I think Maria has a chance here because of its costume design. I don't understand why people aren't like really predicting it. And then I also do think that A Complete Unknown can also sneak in here. But I think this top 5 is pretty good. Wicked, Doom Part 2, Nosferatu, Conclave, Maria. I do think Gold Derby is kind of like slacking a little bit with their nominations. But you know what? Screw it. Let's go for it. And then cinematography. Let's continue on. I'm going to speed run a lot of these nominations. I don't know if I will have a good chance of getting a good score, but fuck it, let's do it. The Brutalists for best cinematography at number 1 makes sense. VistaVision, like, come on, bro. Doom Part 2, like, it's staying here. I think Nosferatu has a good chance of getting that number 3 spot. Number 4, Conclave. And then number 5, I have Emilia Perez, and everybody's yelling at me. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Scratch it. Let's take out... Hold on a second. Let me see the little scorecard because I don't want to like rush myself. So first off, the cinematography branch, or the ASC, nominated Maria, Nosferatu, The Brutalist, Conclave, Doom Part 2, and A Complete Unknown. So this is going to be kind of like crazy because I do think Doom Part 2 is kind of like in threat mode, but I think it might stay here. I do think Nosferatu could also get in here because of its black and white cinematography in some moments. I also do think that Conclave can stay here and Emilia Perez can stay here. However, I do think Maria has a good chance of getting in here as the number 5 slot, but I still think Emilia Perez, like, I know the cinematography is kind of like off-putting for a lot of people, but I think it's pretty well done, especially if you've seen the film in 35mm. It really pops up or pops out. But I think I have to take Emilia Perez out and put in Maria at number 5 because I do think Maria can coast on by just with like that lone cinematography nomination because El Conde, another Pablo Larraín movie that came out, I think it was like last year, got that nomination. So you got to like take that into account. So my top 5 is The Brutalist, Doom Part 2, Nosferatu, Conclave, and Maria for Best Cinematography. So let's continue on with the screenplay categories, starting with original screenplay and adapted screenplay. My number 1 pick is Anora. Number 2, The Brutalist. Number 3, A Real Pain. Number 4, I have The Substance. And then number 5, honestly, this last slot is going to be really crazy because it could go either other way. September 5 is surging in a weird way because the movie itself kind of had a really bad campaign start, but that's mostly because nobody has seen it. It's flopping at the box office. It didn't do pretty well when it opened at Venice and Telluride, but for some reason it's just been like sticking on, and I think it's probably because of the trades trying to make it happen when it shouldn't be happening. It should be other contending films like Hard Truths and Challengers, especially Challengers. I think Challengers deserves that 5th slot. But right now it's just been like a really tough battle between Hard Truths, September 5, and Challengers. Let me check the little scorecard real quick. I do think A Real Pain might actually have a better chance getting in here and also potentially winning. So I'm going to like drop it back to number 2 or put it up to number 2. I think Anora will actually take it. And number 3, The Brutalist. Number 4, The Substance. And I think, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I got to like ball out and go for Challengers at number 5. I know the screenplay has been hitting with at least 2 of the precursors according to the scorecard, but I think it'll survive. I do think you should watch out for September 5 getting in here because the inorganic campaign of that film is starting to peak. And I think Hard Truths, I truly wish it was nominated here for the 5th slot. But the Mike Leigh's screenplay has been kind of like falling apart this season. I wish it was a part of this entire season, Hard Truths in general, but yeah, it's not working out for Mike Leigh. But yeah, it's like my top 5 for original screenplay. And then when we get to adapted is Conclave winning right now at number 1. And then number 2, I have Sing Sing. Number 3, Emilia Perez. Number 4, I have A Complete Unknown. And then number 5, it's kind of like a trap because Nickel Boys, for some reason, is surging here for adapted screenplay, but it's not surging anywhere else. I will explain a little bit later when we get deeper into, director picture. But I think Wicked could actually potentially get in here, mainly because of just how, well the movie's doing at the box office and just this award season. But for some reason, I think Nickel Boys, its lone adapted screenplay nomination here could actually become a thing. It's still a super weird kind of thing to predict because it's just why would you just nominate Nickel Boys for best adapted screenplay and just move forward and not nominate it for cinematography or best supporting actress and picture and director? It's just so strange. I don't understand it. But I have to pull the trigger for Nickel Boys and put it at the top 5. I do think Wicked could actually knock it out. But man, let me go back to the WGA nominations because I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. So the WGA nominations were it was just really sad. They really did a number on some of the films that I potentially thought would get nominated here. A Complete Unknown got nominated, and Dune Part 2, Hitman, Nickel Boys, and then Wicked, and then also Challengers Nora, Civil War, and My Old Ass. It's just I don't know, it's weird to really think that Nickel Boys is going to be the only thing nominated here for Best Adapted Screenplay and just the entire Oscar season. But fuck, man, I just have to go with my gut and go with Nickel Boys, but I do think Wicked is going to take that 5th slot. This is another one where I'm just going to go I'm going to lose this prediction, but fuck it. I have to ball out. So, yeah, it's my best adapted screenplay nomination with Conclave, Sing Sing, Emilia Perez, Complete Unknown, and then Nickel Boys. So, best supporting actor is going to be pretty simple. Kieran Culkin at number 1 for Real Pain. Guy Pearce at number 2 for The Brutalist. Yura Borisov for Honora at number 3. Edward Norton at Complete Unknown for number 4. And then number 5, I'm going with Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. I understand that Clarence Macklin got nominated for the BAFTA, but unfortunately, the season has been flopping. It hasn't shown up anywhere else, aside from the BAFTA nominations, and the Golden Globes didn't do pretty well with it. So I gotta take into account Jeremy Strong's rise as the Best Actor 5th slot nominee. I do think it's kind of sus to think about Jeremy Strong just being the only sole nomination for The Apprentice, but I will explain a little bit later once I get into Best Actor. But yeah, that's my top 5 for Best Supporting Actor. I think this is probably the most locked up section of the season. I don't have anything else to take into account. I don't see Jonathan Bailey getting in, even though he got in for SAG, and that's probably because of the influencer voting thing circle. A lot of influencers are a part of the BAFTAs. So once they saw Wicked, they all were just yeah, let's nominate for Jonathan Bailey for Wicked, just out of spite. And then Stanley Tucci for Conclave hasn't shown up anywhere else. And then Denzel has been crashing out. I don't see him getting nominated here. But yeah, that's basically it. And I'm actually really glad that Yura Borisov hasn't missed anywhere. I thought he was going to miss somewhere in between, either with SAGs and maybe BAFTAs, but it turns out he's just been doing pretty damn well this season. So yeah, it's in my top 5. Kieran Culkin, Guy Pearce, Yura Borisov, Edward Norton, and Jeremy Strong. Okay, so supporting actress. This is a tough one. I've just been fighting my demons with these picks, but you know what? I have to hold my heart out for this. So starting with number 1, Zoe Saldana. I think she's going to take it right now, currently. Number 2, I have Ariana Grande. Number 3, I have Isabella Rossellini. Number 4, I have Margaret Qualley. And then number 5, I have Jamie Lee Curtis for The Last Showgirl. And let me explain this. I do think Jamie Lee Curtis, her late stage surge with the SAG nomination and the BAFTA nomination can account to her being nominated here at the Oscars, but I do think also Felicity Jones has a really good shot of making it here, even though she missed out. I think it was SAG, I believe she missed out, if I remember correctly. Let me double check. Yeah, she missed out at a SAG. It was only Adrian Brody who got nominated for Best Actor. So that was a little bit of a kneecap for Felicity Jones. She's in the wheelchair now, unfortunately. But you gotta put into account Jamie Lee Curtis's strong campaign potential with The Last Showgirl, even though it kind of like started out just with only it being like a Golden Globe thing. But now it turns out she might actually get this nomination and might steal it away from Daniel Deadwyler. Monica Barbaro, she might also have a chance here, but I do think Jamie Lee Curtis has a better chance right now because of name recognition. So yeah, it's just really hard. I wish Felicity Jones could be a part of just this nomination, but I think the problem with The Brutalist is Felicity Jones's character appears in the second half of the movie, and by the time you get to the second half of the movie, it's kind of like a long enough movie, and I think a lot of voters are kind of like starting to like wane on the runtime issues, even though I do think the movie runs pretty fast. But again, I think Jamie Lee Curtis, she has a shot here. You have to like take into account her late stage surge with the SAG and BAFTA nomination. So that's why I have Jamie Lee Curtis at number 5. Other than that, that's basically it for the supporting actress nominations. I feel really bad for these like picks because I'm just like, fuck, like you have Daniel Deadwyler, you have Felicity Jones, you have Anjanae Ellis Taylor for Nickel Boys. Like, why aren't you picking those instead of, God, it's just so bad. Like, this season has just been, like, really fucked up. But, yeah, that's just, like, my top 5 for Best Supporting Actress. And I know a lot of people are probably going to pick Monica Barbaro as, like, that 5th slot also as well because of the Complete Unknown nominations getting pretty damn well with, BAFTAs and SAGs. But I do think Jamie Lee Curtis, again, has a better chance because of the campaign she's pulling and the name recognition, but again, I could be wrong. But yeah, it's like my extra little, small note for Best Supporting Actress. Let's move on for Best Actor. So with Best Actor, this is probably the most locked up of this season, although I do think there's some arguments about the 5th slot, but I'm going to pull whoever I think deserves it, at least since this race has kind of been thrown off a little bit. But number 1, I have Adrien Brody for The Brutalist. Number 2, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. Number 3, Timothée Chalamet for Complete Unknown. Actually, I think Timothée Chalamet should be at number 2. So number 2, Timothée Chalamet, Complete Unknown. Number 3, Ralph Fiennes, Conclave. Number 4, Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing. And number 5, Daniel Craig, Queer. People are going like, what the fuck? Why would you choose Daniel Craig for Queer? Listen, he did get the SAG nomination, which predictions thought that he wouldn't get it here and it would have been just, the BAFTAs instead. But it kind of flip-flopped. He got the SAG nomination and he missed out on the BAFTA, which was really strange. But Daniel Craig has been doing pretty well. Same with Sebastian Stan with The Apprentice and A Different Man. But I feel like Sebastian Stan with both of those films, it's going to like cancel out with each other. And even though the film Queer has been divisive for a lot of people, I think Daniel Craig, just the whole idea of him getting nominated here makes sense because he's just been a celebrated actor for the past couple years, especially since, Bond is done and people are just like clamoring for, Daniel Craig to do something different, and he did something different with Queer. So that's the reason why I have him at number 5, and the reason why I think Sebastian Stan, those two films are going to like cancel each other out. Number 4, Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing. He rides along with Sing Sing. No matter what, he hasn't completely missed the season, and even again the movie has kind of like fallen apart in terms of its nomination ring. Coleman Domingo, he's just like the face of the movie, and it makes sense for him to have this nomination here. Same with last year or the year before when he did Rustin. It was just like, all right, well, he's here. Then Ralph Fiennes makes sense, Timothée Chalamet, and then Adrien Brody winning is just a perfect cap end to this season. So let's get into Best Actress. So next up is Best Actress. Listen up. This is just going to be like a crazy, prediction, especially for the 5th slot. But you know what? Let's go for it. Demi Moore, number 1, The Substance. Mikey Madison, Honora. Carla Sofia Garçon for Emilia Perez at number 3. Number 4, I have Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. And then number 5, I have Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. Her late stage surge after the Golden Globes has been pretty damn well. I think the international block will completely go for Fernanda Torres instead of Marianne Jean-Baptiste, even though Marianne Jean-Baptiste won the trifecta of Critics Awards this season. But I think her path right now is just unfortunate because it's literally like the same path that another Mike Leigh film did a couple years ago with Happy Go Lucky that won the trifecta, and it just went nowhere after that. But I think Fernanda Torres, her campaign is just very organic and very lived in, and a lot of people around the world are rooting for her, and I'm rooting for her, and I think she deserves that fifth slot, especially I think since it's probably going to be like the international fifth slot, even though I do think also Carlo Sofia Garcon could just be the lone international pick, since that film, Emilia Perez, has won everywhere across like the international awards, especially, you know, Cannes and the European Film Awards. But I also do think Fernanda Torres has a fair fight and chance to like get the fifth slot. She's been in a lot of press campaigns, especially like on talk shows and whatnot, but I think she has the potential to be a part of the fifth slot. I don't see Angelina Jolie getting here anymore. Nicole Kidman is basically done, especially Saoirse Ronan for the Outrun. Saoirse Ronan for the Outrun. I think that's done. Although that surprise BAFTA nomination was pretty nice, but it's basically over. Kate Winslet for Lee. I had some thoughts about that, but it's not turning out to be what it's supposed to be. Although, if it does happen, it's probably going to be like the two Leslie of this season where it just happens because, you know, it's Kate Winslet. But my top five is Demi Moore, Mikey Madison, Carla Sofia Garcon, Cynthia Erivo, and then Fernanda Torres. And I know a lot of people are kicking out Cynthia Erivo just because of the movie just being part one, but the movie is just way too strong for it to just like miss out for Best Actress. Like, it would be asinine for it to like miss just for Cynthia Erivo. Like, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's like my top five for Best Actress. So next up I have Best Director, starting with Brady Corbett for The Brutalist. Number 2, Sean Baker for Honora. Number 3, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez. Number 4, Edward Berger for Conclave. And then the fifth slot is kind of debatable. Denis Villeneuve has missed out everywhere else. He's been falling apart this season, and I think it's probably because the movie itself premiered in March, and it just kind of like flailed out with other potential, you know, nominees. And it's sad because I think Dune Part 2, the direction in that movie is way better than the first part. But man, it just sucks because Dune Part 2 has just been like flopping hard with a lot of the categories, especially Best Director. So him just like missing out, I think like at the DGAs really like put the book home with, you know, Dune being not contending for Best Director. However, I do think he has a chance of being saved here for the Directors Guild or the Directors Branch, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen for Denis Villeneuve, especially also, you know, Ramel Ross with Nickel Boys. Like, he did get the first time nomination for the DGA's first time director nomination, but he's just been not showing up anywhere else this season, and it's another like casualty with Nickel Boys being underappreciated and under-campaigned. I blame Amazon MGM for doing the far less, you know, campaign with it and focusing a lot with like Challengers, even though Challengers, for some weird reason, like it's getting a lot of like number ones, number two with like the best top 10 lists for, you know, best films of 2024, but somehow nobody's like putting, you know, Luca in their top 5 for Best Director. Nobody's, you know, predicting it for Best Picture. Like, it's a weird thing. And Nickel Boys, it kind of like falling apart also turns into Ramel Ross not getting in for the Director 5. So that's why I have Coraline Forget for The Substance, because the other awards bodies are doing pretty well with nominating The Substance in most of the categories that it needs. And it's very surprising because I think the film itself might turn off some people, especially in the last third of the movie, but it's needed because I do think this film and the director has done a really good job campaigning. And on top of that, they want to like put in at least one woman director this year, and I think Coraline Forget is the perfect pick for this fifth slot. That's why I have her at number 5. But do watch out for James Mangold for Complete Unknown. He did get the DGA nomination, which was really strange because I think the direction is just okay. It's more like an editing type of deal, or just like kind of like the small screenplay. But again, it's more also about like the acting, not like the directing of that film. But you have to watch out. I don't see John M. Chu getting in here, and I don't really see Ridley Scott or Walter Salles getting in, or even Pio Capaldi. Although I do think the Golden Globe nomination for her was really nice. I do wish she had more chances during the season, but maybe she could get in for that 5th slot. She could like take out Coraline Farget, but I don't really see it. So that's why I have my like top 5 with Brady Corbett, Sean Baker, Jacques Audiard, Edward Berger, and Coraline Farget. And finally, we have Best Picture, The Big Boy. So this season has just been unpredictable with just a lot of the contending picture films this year. And it's just been really rough. And I don't understand a lot of the precursor picks for a lot of these films getting in, especially the last 2 slots. But you know what? It's one of those years where the correlation between a lot of people's perceptions of some of the films that are contending this year, in terms of just a lot of the films that are here, translating to, the general public and up to like film Twitter, it's just not been correlating or like transitioning together. But oh man, like this year again, it's just been really, really sad and unpredictable. I like the unpredictability, but I hate the choices that have to be made here. So starting with number 1, The Brutalist, I think it's still going to win here. It won the Golden Globe, and I will explain a little bit later once we get past the nominations and focus more on like the wins. But I have this at number 1. Number 2, I have Emilia Perez, Sole Purpose, because it won the Golden Globe and the international block loves this movie, so you have to take that into account. Number 3 and number 4, Conclave. Number 5, Wicked. Number 6, A Complete Unknown. Number 7, Doom Part 2. Number 8, The Substance. And these last 2 slots are going to be widely debated, but let's get into the reasons why I have these last 2 slots taking space with these last 2 films. So starting with September 5 at my number 9 slot, it got the PGA award, and again, Best Picture always goes to the producers no matter what. And it's a late stage surge you have to kind of like take into account. But I think the negative side of September 5, just taking this nomination away from other great films, is due to the fact that this film has just been like showing up mostly nowhere. And it just started to get like a late stage surge in some places with like Best Adapted Screenplay and like editing. And then, with Picture with the Golden Globe. But it getting the PGA nomination over, Sing Sing and Nickel Boys and even I'm Still Here. It's just like, this is just insane. Like, I don't understand why September 5 is just getting like a late stage surge. And it's really pissing me off because I do think Emilia Perez, as much as you don't like that movie, a lot of people don't like that movie, like, it's boiling like award season started out with like the Cannes Jury Prize win and then the runner-up award at TIFF and then just like also the Best Actress trio win at Cannes. So it has started to like boil up from the beginning get-go. But with September 5, this movie just flopped at Venice. It flopped at Telluride. Betrayed predicted it at number 1 out of spite because, it's about journalism, but, it's Betrayed, so you want to like put a movie out there as their number 1 spot just for, for production and promotion purposes. They get paid to, predict these nominations, especially if it's a big studio like Paramount. But that PGA nomination just fucking kills me, bro. Like, why would you pick September 5 over, Sing Sing or Nickel Boys? Like, it's just, I don't really fucking get it. Like, it's like a really like intense and sad moment for like Nickel Boys and Sing Sing, like it missing out here. Like Sing Sing, it just like completely missing at PGA and just everywhere else just like really kills it. That's why I have September 5 at number 9. And number 10, I have A Real Pain because I feel like even though it's probably going to be nominated for Best Original Screenplay and it's going to win it for Kieran Culkin, I think the package of picture, supporting actor, and the original screenplay, it's a better brew. It's a better win package or nomination package over, Sing Sing, where it's just starting to like fall apart and it's just only for like Best Actor and maybe Supporting Actor. And then Nickel Boys, man, it's just sad. Like, I don't know how Nickel Boys just completely like blanked this season. I have to blame Amazon for just doing a really shitty campaign. The film should have just premiered at the New York Film Festival instead of Telluride. I think the New York Film Festival crowd had a better, chance of making the film start out as a good Best Picture contending film. I think the Telluride crowd, it doesn't respond well to, films that are very experimental and very just like out of left field. So I think that's like the reason why I think Nickel Boys is just completely falling apart, because of its like Telluride premiere. It should just like premiered at New York Film Festival, and just like the film in general. Even though the film is boasting about its like first person point of view perspective of cinematography, the film itself I do think is very important. And I think the reason why I think it's kind of like falling apart is because of that cinematography choice and just the overall like narrative of the film. I think a lot of people are starting to like take a backlash against black-led films that deal with a lot of black trauma, especially since last year with American Fiction winning Best Screenplay and it criticizing a lot of those films. I think it's probably like at that point where we're just kind of like falling apart with like a lot of these like struggle films, even though I do think Nickel Boys is way more important and way more bountiful with its themes instead of, you know, Till or The Piano Lesson, like those films that kind of just are struggle films. But I think Nickel Boys deserves to be at the number 10 slot, and it's just, again, sad. It's just flopping. So that's why I have like my last two slots with like September 5 and A Real Pain. I do think September 5, it could be a fluke. It could be a thing where like at the end of the road, once the Oscar nominations come out, September 5 just gets completely blanked. And I wish it will get blanked, because it's my Oscar villain. I know a lot of people are putting stock on Emilio Perez as like their own Oscar villain, but it's September 5, and you should put more negative stocks onto September 5 instead of Emilio Perez. So that's like my top 10. Brutalist at number 1, Emilio Perez at number 2, Anora at number 3, Conclave at number 4, Wicked at number 5, A Complete Unknown at number 6, Doom Part 2 at number 7, The Substance at number 8, September 5 at number 9, and A Real Pain at number 10. And those are my Oscar predictions, my final Oscar predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe, do everything you can to share this video out. Yeah, my predictions are pretty strange, weird, crazy, but this whole season has been just been kind of super crazy and unpredictable, and I like it that way. But I think this year in particular has been all over the place, and I feel like my predictions are going to be like really bad. But you know what? That's why I love about this season and love about just predicting Oscars in general. It's just a really fun thing, and it's kind of like cool to like hang out with people across like these discussion boards and like talk about like these predictions. But yeah, you guys can follow me on like my links, and also the Awards Expert app I will be putting in the description. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Take care and peace out.